I want to tell you something strange today, something that took weeks for me to fully believe. Almost every doctor and fitness article tells you the same thing. Walk more, walk daily, 10,000 steps, and your circulation will take care of itself. That advice is not wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. There is a specific way of walking, a way almost nobody teaches, that changes what happens inside your blood vessels in a way an ordinary stroll never touches. Do it for just 5 minutes, and your blood flow responds in a way researchers have compared to a light cardiovascular workout, without raising your heart rate the way running does. Today I will show you exactly what this way of walking is, why your circulatory system responds to it so powerfully, and how 5 minutes tonight could start changing the blood moving through your legs, your heart, and your brain. Before we get into the walking itself, I want to make a quick request, because this channel, Smart Psychology, only grows when people like you decide the information is worth passing along. If you find even one part of this video useful, take 5 seconds right now and tap that subscribe button, and if you know someone whose legs swell by the end of the day, or someone who sits at a desk for 8 hours, send this to them. It costs nothing, and it might be the nudge they need. Now, let us build this from the ground up, starting with a question almost nobody asks: what actually moves your blood back up your legs? Most people assume the heart does all the work of circulation, it pumps blood out and somehow it just comes back. That is only half true. Your heart is extraordinarily good at pushing blood downward and outward through your arteries. Gravity is on its side there, blood simply falls toward your feet with every heartbeat. But getting blood back up from your feet to your heart is a completely different physical problem, because now gravity is working against you, and the heart alone, at rest, does not generate nearly enough pressure to pull blood back up through 2 feet of leg on its own. Your body solved this problem millions of years ago with something physiologists call the skeletal muscle pump. And inside your lower leg, the most important part of that system is your calf. Your calf muscles are sometimes nicknamed the second heart, and that nickname is not poetic exaggeration, it is close to literal fact. Every time your calf muscle contracts, it squeezes the deep veins running through your leg, and that squeeze forces blood upward, toward your heart, against gravity. Inside those veins are tiny one-way valves, shaped almost like little trapdoors, and every time your calf contracts, blood gets pushed up past a valve, the valve closes behind it, and gravity cannot pull that blood back down. Contract, push, close, over and over, thousands of times a day. That is the quiet machine keeping your circulation moving properly. I want to pause here and ask a question almost nobody bothers asking. Why would the human body build such an elegant system in the first place, and rely on it so completely? The answer goes back a very long way. For most of human history, people did not sit at a desk for 8 hours, and then take a short evening stroll around the block. They walked long distances over uneven ground, they climbed, they carried loads, and every single one of those movements demanded a full, deep range of motion through the ankle and foot. The calf pump was not a bonus feature. It was load-bearing infrastructure, something the body depended on daily just to keep blood and fluid from pooling in the legs during long hours upright. Modern life removed almost all of that demand. We stand on flat, even floors, we take short shuffling steps between a desk and a car and a couch, and our feet rarely get asked to roll through their full natural range even once in an average day. The system did not disappear, it simply went quiet, waiting for a reason to fully engage again. And that reason is exactly what we are about to walk through together. Here is the part that changes everything, and here is where the walking myth starts to fall apart. A shallow, shuffling walk, the kind most people default to without thinking, barely uses your calf through its full range. Watch how most people walk through a grocery store or an office hallway. The stride is short, the ankle barely bends, the heel barely lifts, and the toe barely pushes off the ground. That kind of walking activates your calf muscles at maybe a third of their potential range of motion. The pump is running, technically, but it is running weak, like a water pump, only half turning its handle. That is why so many people who consider themselves active still deal with heavy legs by evening, ankle swelling after a long day, or that dull, achy pressure feeling behind the knee. It is not that walking failed them, it is that their walking pattern never asked the calf pump to do its full job. Now I want to describe the walking pattern that changes this, and I am calling it, for the purpose of this video, the full roll walk, because that name describes exactly what your foot is doing. It begins the moment your heel touches the ground. Instead of letting your foot flatten quickly and move on, you deliberately let your weight roll from the back of your heel, along the outside edge of your foot, forward across the ball of your foot, and finally through your big toe, and only your big toe, at the very end of the step. That final push through the big toe is the single most important part of the entire movement, because that is the moment your calf contracts the hardest. That is the moment the pump squeezes the deep veins with real force, and that is the moment those valves get the strongest upward push of the entire stride. At the same time, you lengthen your stride slightly beyond your normal comfortable length. You let your arms swing naturally from your shoulders instead of staying stiff at your sides, and you keep your posture tall, chest open, instead of hunching forward the way tired people tend to walk. That combination, the deliberate heel-to-toe roll, the strong final push through the big toe, the slightly longer stride, and the relaxed arm swing, is what separates the full roll walk from an ordinary walk, even though from across the street it might look almost the same. I know some of you are thinking, that sounds like such a small adjustment. How could that possibly matter for something as important as blood flow? That is exactly the right question, and the answer comes down to a concept in physiology called shear stress. When blood moves through your veins and arteries faster and with more force, it drags slightly against the inner lining of those vessels, called the endothelium. That dragging force is shear stress, and your endothelium is not a passive tube. It is a living, sensing layer of cells that responds to how fast blood is moving across it. When shear stress increases, your endothelium releases a molecule called nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is one of the most important substances in your entire cardiovascular system. It signals the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls to relax, which widens the vessel, lowers resistance, and allows even more blood to flow through with less effort from your heart. This is not a fringe theory. Nitric oxide research on endothelial function won a Nobel Prize in medicine, and one of the most reliable, low-cost ways to trigger nitric oxide release in your legs is exactly this kind of forceful, rhythmic muscle contraction, the kind you get from a full, deliberate push through your foot with every step, far more than you get from a shallow shuffle. There is another layer to this that most people never connect to walking at all, and it involves your blood pressure. When the calf pump is weak or barely engaged, more blood tends to sit lower in the body, in the legs and feet, simply pooling there under the pull of gravity while you are upright. Your heart and your nervous system have to work a little harder to keep enough blood circulating up toward your brain and your upper body under those conditions, which is part of why some people feel a mild fog or heaviness by mid-afternoon after hours of sitting followed by shallow, low-effort walking. A properly engaged calf pump, working through a full roll on every step, helps return more blood upward toward the heart efficiently, which supports steadier blood pressure regulation, and researchers believe more consistent blood flow up toward the brain as well. This is part of why some people report feeling noticeably more alert, not just physically lighter, after a short walk done with real attention to the push through the foot compared to the same number of minutes spent in a shallow shuffle. Your brain receives roughly a fifth of a total blood flow at rest, and it is remarkably sensitive to small changes in how efficiently that blood is delivered. So a leg mechanism that improves venous return even modestly can have effects that reach far beyond the legs themselves. There is a second mechanism working alongside this one, and it involves your lymphatic system, which many people have never even heard explained clearly. Your lymphatic system is a separate network of vessels running alongside your blood vessels, and its job is to drain excess fluid, waste products, and immune cells out of your tissues and eventually back into your bloodstream. Unlike your circulatory system, your lymphatic system has no central pump at all, no heart of its own. It depends entirely on the squeezing action of surrounding muscles, especially the calf, to keep fluid moving. This is why standing still for hours or walking with a shallow, low-effort stride so often leads to that puffy, swollen feeling around the ankles by the end of the day. Fluid is pooling because nothing is squeezing it back up. A full roll walk, with its strong calf contraction on every single step, acts almost like a manual pump for your lymphatic system, helping drain that pooled fluid far more effectively than a lazy stride ever could. Let me tell you about someone I will call Diane, because her story illustrates this better than any statistic could. Diane was 54, worked a desk job, and walked her dog for 20 minutes every evening, which she was proud of, and rightly so. But by the end of most days, her ankles were visibly swollen, her socks left deep red marks around her calves, and she often described her legs as feeling heavy, like she was walking through wet sand by dinner time. Her doctor mentioned compression socks, and told her to keep walking, which she did, and it helped a little, but not enough to change how her evenings felt. When she started practicing the full roll walk during her existing dog walks, nothing else about her routine changed. Same 20 minutes, same route, same dog. Within about 10 days, she noticed her ankles were less puffy by evening. Within a month, the red sock marks were barely visible. She told me the biggest surprise was not the swelling, it was that her legs simply felt lighter, less like she was dragging them, especially in the last hour before bed. Nothing about her total exercise time changed, only the mechanics of each individual step changed, and that alone was enough to shift something measurable in how her circulation handled the day. I also want to mention someone very different from Diane, a man I will call Marcus, 29 years old, who ran 3 times a week and considered himself in excellent shape. Marcus assumed his circulation was already about as good as it could get, given how much cardio he did, and in many ways he was right, his heart and lungs were strong. But he noticed that after long flights or long days standing at work events for his job, his lower legs would still ache and tighten by evening, something that surprised him given how fit he otherwise felt. It turned out his everyday walking, the walking he did between meetings and around his apartment, was fast but shallow. Quick, choppy steps with almost no roll through the foot, because speed had become his only measure of a good walk. When he slowed down slightly during his regular daily walking and focused on the same heel-to-toe roll, with a strong push through the big toe, he noticed within about 2 weeks that the end-of-day ankle tightness he had quietly accepted as normal for years had almost completely disappeared. His running had built an excellent heart, but it had never taught his feet to move through their full range on ordinary days, and that gap turned out to matter more than he expected. This brings us to a moment where I want to ask you for something small, and it genuinely helps this channel more than you might think. If this explanation is making sense to you, if you are starting to picture your own legs by the end of a long day, comment the word legs below, just that one word. It helps this video reach more people who are dealing with exactly what you might be dealing with: heavy legs, tired ankles, or that low-grade circulation sluggishness so many people accept as normal without ever questioning it. It takes 3 seconds, and it genuinely makes a difference for how many people see this information, and honestly, for how many people finally stop accepting heavy, tired legs as just a normal part of getting older. Now let us talk about how to actually practice the full roll walk correctly, because the details matter here more than people expect. Start by slowing down your normal walking pace slightly, just for the 5 minutes you are practicing this, because speed will tempt you to shortcut the roll and just slap your foot down flat again. Land on your heel first, feel the contact point clearly at the very back of your foot. Then consciously roll forward along the outer edge, not the inner edge, of your foot. This keeps your ankles stable and protects your knee from unnecessary inward strain. As your weight shifts forward, let it move across the ball of your foot and finish with a clear, deliberate push through your big toe before that foot lifts completely off the ground. Your other foot should already be landing on its heel by the time this push happens. So the motion flows continuously, heel roll push, like a wave moving down each leg in turn. Lengthen your stride by roughly 10 to 15% beyond what feels automatic. Not so much that you feel like you are lunging, just enough that you notice your hip opening a little more with each step. Let your arms swing, opposite arm to opposite leg, loosely from the shoulder, because this rhythm helps your whole body move with more coordinated force rather than fighting against itself. Keep your chin level, your chest lifted, your shoulders back and relaxed rather than hunched toward your ears. A useful trick, especially in the beginning, is to count your steps out loud in your head. Heel roll push, because narrating the motion keeps your attention on the mechanics instead of letting your mind drift and your stride slowly flatten back to its old habit. Some people find it helpful to practice barefoot on carpet at home for the first few sessions, because you can actually feel the pressure move from heel to outer edge to ball to toe far more clearly without a shoe cushioning the sensation. Once that feeling is familiar, transferring it into your normal walk with shoes on, outside or at work, becomes much easier, because your nervous system already knows what the correct movement feels like. 5 minutes of this, done with real attention on the push through the toe, is enough to notice a difference, and 10 to 15 minutes, once or twice a day, is where most of the meaningful circulatory benefits tend to show up, according to the physiology behind this mechanism. I do want to be honest about who should be cautious here. If you have a diagnosed vascular condition, a history of blood clots, severe varicose veins, diabetic neuropathy affecting sensation in your feet, or any recent foot, ankle, or knee surgery, talk to your doctor before changing your walking mechanics. Because your situation may need individual guidance I cannot give you through a video. I am not your doctor, and nothing here replaces a real medical evaluation for an existing condition. For the vast majority of otherwise healthy adults, though, this adjustment is low risk and, if anything, tends to reduce strain on the knee over time, because a strong full push through the foot distributes force more evenly through the leg than a stiff, shallow flat-footed shuffle does, which often puts uneven pressure directly through the knee joint instead of sharing that load properly across the ankle, calf, and hip. If you ever feel sharp pain rather than simple muscular fatigue in your foot, ankle, or knee while practicing this, stop, rest, and check in with a professional rather than pushing through it, because sharp pain is always information worth listening to. There is a broader pattern worth sitting with here, beyond just blood flow. So much of what determines how your body feels day to day is not about doing more minutes of exercise, more steps, more effort. It is about doing what you already do slightly more intentionally. Diane did not add a single extra minute to her routine. She simply changed how each step landed and pushed off the ground. Your heart does not need you to run marathons to keep your circulation healthy. It needs your calf muscles to actually do their job as the second heart they were built to be, fully, with real range of motion, instead of half-heartedly shuffling through the motions. Most modern discomfort in the body, the heaviness, the puffiness, the low energy feeling by evening, comes less from a lack of movement and more from movement that never asks anything real of the muscles responsible for it. We tend to measure our health in totals, total steps, total minutes, total miles, and those numbers matter, but they can quietly hide the fact that quality of movement often outweighs quantity. Two people can walk the exact same number of steps in a day and end that day in completely different physical states, simply because one of them let their foot do half the job it was built to do, while the other asked it to finish the movement completely, every single time. I think that is worth sitting with for a moment, because it changes how you might think about every walk you take from here forward. To the mailbox, through the office, around the block with the dog. The mechanism is not complicated. Roll fully through the foot, push hard through the big toe, let your calf do the work it was designed to do, and your circulatory system responds with more nitric oxide, stronger venous return, and better lymphatic drainage, all from 5 minutes of attention, rather than any extra time at all. If something in this video shifted how you think about your own legs, about circulation, or about how much power is hiding inside something as ordinary as a footstep, that is exactly why this channel exists. To take things people walk past every single day and show what is really happening underneath. Subscribe to Smart Psychology if you have not already, because there is more of this kind of thinking coming about the body, about the mind, about the quiet mechanics running underneath everything we do without noticing. And tonight, on your very next walk, even if it is just to the kitchen, try the roll, feel the push through your big toe, and notice what your legs feel like by the end of the day. Your circulation has been waiting for you to ask a little more of it, and now you know exactly how. Heel, roll, push. One small habit repeated enough times to change how your whole body feels by the end of every single day.